We are here live at the Mystery Font. I think now it's a good time to make sure that I send an invitation to JD Vance and some of this cluster of fascists, because it's important for him to know that he is being discussed as a candidate for being ostracized from society. You don't bring your Ku Klux cancer into public as a method and scream on a bullhorn about it. You don't scream that people who are here illegally are in fact illegals and you're just going to call them illegals in quotes. How dare you, ridiculous Nazi. And so I'm going to send him an invitation. Here we are at the Mystery Font. And day does turn into day overnight. But do we have to wait forever for justice, or light, or truth and fact? Let's do yes. Very good. And share. That's good. Rest. All right. Excellent. And thus, we are at a screen at which I think we can stay for a bit. Welcome, JD. You threatened America last night by joining Trump's ongoing insurrection, by supporting his hoax of anti-Trump fraud in 2020. You joined the insurrectionists and defiled us and this election by disregarding your responsibility to affirm your will to honor the terms of service. Come on. Ugh. Oh well. I don't understand how that's happening, but oh well. How can I do this? Oh, I see. That's where we're going. To honor. There we go. Okay. So that, yeah. I think that's where we are. You ridiculous coward and gaslighting dictator in waiting. How disgusting. You should be arrested for sedition. If anyone had a chance to pull us into reality, it is the person picked to run with someone who just gaslit us before the last presidential debate that he had lost by a whisker. So partially maybe an abusive terroristic relationship with a predator, and everyone in the world was easing, or nope, simply what a predator and abuser does to control the mind it works to fully own. And the shocking boundary violation of affirming, oh no, actually, of course I still believe that I won. Unacceptable. What's more, again, you are joining this ticket, and it's clear that you have joined the party of Donald Trump and you. And it's a ticket and a party that stands only for Donald Trump, and maybe for the coattails reservation you have on his backside. But you are a part of apocalypse. You just told us you don't have to answer a question about whether or not your draconian largest deportation in history, you say, will separate parents and children. You fail twice to answer that. You fail twice grinning, and fill the entire time with baseless insults. But even whatabouting to a different topic is unacceptable. Your frankly Nazi playbook of Project 2025 talks about concentration camps, talks about the kinds of marshaled force and erasure of agency that is absolutely anti-democratic and would terrorize and shatter what is left of the substrate of this republic. JD Vance, you are a terrorist. Whether you have a card or not, you are a Ku Klux cock, sir. You are a fucking Nazi. No one tells us they will keep us in suspense. And just because people failed at the debate in 2016 and made a better effort last night, but also failed to simply hold the boundary and say, would you like another chance to answer that question, or is that your final answer? You failed because you tried to suspend us. Boy. And boy, what a stupid fucking mistake. You will be eaten whole if you are going to cling to your cancer and try to gain power. You will be eaten whole. You will be shat from the ass of the new Colossus. Don't ever threaten to keep us in suspense about whether you will honor the terms of service of the job you're seeking. By the way, you're running for vice president, and it's not the same job as president. So while you may have some influence and have some projects, were you to lie your way into a victory or violently attack your way into finishing the insurrection that Trump has enlisted you in, you would find that you would not then be president. You would in fact be terrorized by someone who has claimed the presidency to crush it into a crown. But even in a relatively normal presidency, you would be a vice president and not in office as president. These are basic things, like the batshit assertion that babies are being aborted after birth, that you and your orange, who hocus pocus, continue to shout demonstrable falsehoods like this, or demonstrable terroristic falsehoods, targeting, like the Nazi you are, people in your community. I did not realize you had gone full dark triad predator and actually said, although these people are here legally, you've decided that because Kamala Harris was involved with that entirely legal accepting of these people into the country, that these people are here legally, and you, like a fucking Hitler Youth cock, say you're going to call them less. You're going to call them less and say, I'm going to call them illegal, even if, because how fucking dare you? No, you won't. Come to Minneapolis and say that to my face. You fucking Nazi! How dare you? This is what you tried to do last night. The same thing that Trump tried to do. You disgusting, ridiculous fuck. You tried to coerce us to submit to you. No! 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 Smiling Ku Klux cock! Fuck! No! No. No, you don't smile at us while you fail to answer whether you're going to strip families apart. You fucking Nazi monster! While Tim Walz failed to mention that you are trying to attack no-fault divorce last night, you are trying to attack no-fault divorce because you want to enslave women. Rapist! Pedophile! Ku Klux Cock predator! You are a rapist! You wrote the foreword for Project 2025's leader, the president of the Heritage Foundation, a Nazi clusterfuck organization. You and Stephen Miller, M, are a fucking attack on America. And you confirmed it last night. You confirmed your attack. Fuck you. No, you don't. No, you fucking don't. No one talks to the United States of America that way. The floor was supposed to open up below you, Vance. And it just did. The answer is fuck no. 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 Fuck no, brown shirt. Don't ever threaten us again. You will accept the terms of service or you will walk the fuck away, boy. No one tries to make America submit. No one tries to make a democracy submit. You fucking Nazi pig. You act like you're not human. Dehumanization also dehumanizes you. The answer is no. Go to therapy or jail. Don't ever threaten us again. If you want the address, it is Statue of Liberty. We are the new Colossus. Live long and prosper. And don't ever threaten us again. No, you will not keep us in suspense. Yes, you will honor the vote, and if you do not win, you will walk the fuck away. No, he did not honor a peaceful transfer of power. He was stopped. You didn't just erase that the insurrection went on for hours. You didn't just try to erase that he presided over the insurrection he fucking invited. You erased that he failed. He tried and failed to crush us. You Nazi fuck! You will not erase any of that shit, and definitely not that that fucker failed. That fucker failed, and you failed. No one is that stupid. No one. No one. You will not talk to any human being that way again. You will not scapegoat Haitian immigrants. How dare you? If you are going to terrorize, you will be crushed. No more tolerance for intolerance. None. You want the mountain to come? Come, mountain! Come, mountain! We will mount your fucking chin, bitch! I will say that word to you. The one meaning of that word I will use is a fucking coward who uses weaponry they don't need to. And you are threatening human family. Bitch! You little Nazi Ku Klux Klan bitch! Don't ever threaten us again! Don't ever try to bring that Nazi shit into public again! It brings therapy and or jail. And that's where you are. Are you apologizing for all of that shit and going to therapy, or are you going to jail? No one fucks with the human race. And you just fucking tried. Don't ever do it again, JD. Come to Minneapolis first. Come to Minneapolis
And we will sit down. And I will calm down in that time. And I'll ask you 5 questions. But the thing is, you will answer them. If you are not a fucking coward, because you just tried to erase your accountability and responsibility like you have absolute authority, or like you're riding the coattails of a devil who does. Fuck whatever, because you are a fucking monster, and you have one pathway back to the table of human family: by confronting and healing, or if necessary, killing your cancer. That's the answer you get, JD, when you try to coerce America, when you try to talk to human beings like that, when you try to talk to anyone on earth like that, while play is alive, while people who remember Mr. Rogers are alive, while people who remember Jesus Christ actually said, love thy neighbor as you love thyself. I remember that, but you betrayer of Christ, you ridiculous antichrist, you think we forgot where our kindness came from. Our kindness comes from where our kindness comes from. It's not like ice cream. The ice cream gets made somewhere, but our kindness is made where our kindness comes from. We are one kind. And if you act like a lynch mobber screaming in a mob when you have the microphone, you're a lynch mobber and a Nazi dictator. Boy, the answer is no. We will wipe you from the map, and if you fight back, you will be a smear. You will be a smear if you try to harm people. The defensive forces of the United States can see Kyle Rittenhouse's coming now. So we have a Rittenhouse for your ass. We know you're a fucking violent rapist, pedophile, and a terrorist. We've seen you already harm Haitian immigrants. So tell M, good try. But no. The answer is no. No one talks to the new Colossus that way. And I'm going to let you have a small amount more of education. I know Tim Walls taught you some things last night, whether or not you absorbed them. But I'm going to teach you something now. Little Nazi monster. Do you know why the new Colossus was written? Do you know what a Colossus is? Do you know that we are all colossi? If minds are all connected via hive mind, or really via morphic resonance, then humanity is a panopticon. But maybe it's not a prison. Maybe it's something else. Maybe being banded together with the opportunity to share knowledge and come from a similar pool of knowledge, in fact, one pool across time and space that is the habit of mention, of habituation, of the mindness in experience. And so the new Colossus and our connection as Americans, and really our connection as beings, as sentient minds, is something that is part of how thought works. We influence each other not just in how we hear each other speak out loud, or in body language, or in direct terrorist threat that you make in those ways, but we can read each other in other ways. And what you don't understand is that intent comes through. Sadly, what you do understand is that intent comes through also. Because you may actually be even a little smarter than Donald Trump. It's hard to say. But you both know that you love fucking people's feelings. And the tell in how much you like that phrase, and how much you like to turn the deranged ideology of Donald Trump and its Nazi paranoia of its own self-catastrophe, of its own corruption, is just blenching through its face all the time. You don't have anything. You're just the scraping fingernails of oblivion upon its own fear. And all you have to do is breathe into the space of humanity is flawed and beautiful, and it's okay to be both at once. And there's enough. There's room for all. We don't have space for intolerance. That's the paradox around tolerance. We're tolerant of anything except for intolerance. And violence targeting communities, violence targeting endangered communities. This is toxin, and it is the mental form of cancer upon the human race. Certainly one variety of it. And you will not do that to us. It's not happening. If it begins, it will be squelched. And you, should it happen, are choosing the shape of your smear. This is the call. This is the call to JD and to all to look inside and see. That warning siren is telling you that the cancer can come. The cancer of the falsehood can interrupt and walk into the mirror. The verity is with us, but the falsehood can indeed show up. The falsehood can show up and terrorize. The falsehood can show up and be a force of decimation. And so check yourself. If you see something in the mirror, say something. If you see something anywhere of the falsehood, and confront that cancer in others and in yourself only. Heal that cancer. And if you need to kill that cancer, kill that cancer. Tell it needs to go. And heal yourself so you can let that cancer leave. It's not the answer. The cancer has never been the answer, JD. And that siren tells us that we have just over a month before we tell you and Donald Trump, no one keeps us in suspense. We are America and we are the human race, with one clap back. How slow is a clap that pens once? Hear that siren. Hear that siren. Right? How's it going with hearing that siren? Are you hearing that siren, JD? How's that going? Can you see the street signs? Can you see the flag across the street? Can you hear that sound? It's asking you, JD, Am I corrupted by Ku Klux Klan? Answer. Do I have cancer? The siren doesn't lie, JD. It came to talk to you. And the siren song of Nazism and patriarchal terrorism has wooed you. And just like cancer takes your leg and tells your leg, oh, actually, you want some of me. Let's beg for less of me. I love this party. Let's bring more of you to the party. The mind cancer does the same thing. It gets you excited about letting it take you completely, and it asks you to bring others to the party. And that's not acceptable. That's spreading intolerance. We need you to go to therapy and deal with your cancer completely on your own, and with people who love you and people you trust. But you have made a cry for help. Echoing the sentiments of the terrorist and insurrectionist Donald Trump, who has come back to finish his insurrection, is a statement of war against the United States. You confirmed that you understand his mission of war against the United States and the end of American democracy with Project 2025, not only by doing an introduction for Kevin Roberts' book, but by saluting and signing on to a 3-year-old brain level lie. No person on earth believes that Donald Trump won the election unless they're using magical thinking, unless they are Ku Klux Klan, unless they are hoodwinked by the falsehood. And you just endangered people. What's worse, it shows that when you invoked Hitler talking about Donald Trump in the past, that you had no business using that name because you didn't respect that name, that horrific monster's path of decimation and what that name carries with it, that you used Hitler's name as currency in the same way that you use your family as currency. You are a ridiculous, greedy, dark triad, malignant narcissist. And we see you. We see you. And no. No, 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 no. Don't ever threaten people like that again. And we're not going to have an argument with you about whether or not you're using terroristic gaslighting. You underlined it. It doesn't happen again with a wrestling match about whether or not you said a hard R. You are a racist and a genocidal bigot across the spectrum. You're dangerous. You shouldn't be in power. You shouldn't enjoy what you're doing, but the constant, vague smile and the smugness with which you talk about sacred things is totally disgusting. It's humiliating for us to watch someone like you or Donald Trump on the national or global stage representing us. That's part of how you defile us, like your entire being and how you present. To say, well, look, Tim, like, boy, we're talking about items of great moment, and you dismiss and undercut and erase. Your failure to answer the most pressing and basic crucial questions, look up crucial if you don't know what the word means. Your failure was an attack. You know that. It's disqualifying. And you know that. Trying to wrestle match different conditions or I'll just flash my card when I get there and I'll tell you, I think, yeah, I'm good. I'll follow you. No, you don't get to talk about anything if you try to wash by us with a lie. The first person called confidence artist asked people that he would cultivate a sense of colloquial co-savviness with. Like Donald Trump, interestingly enough, he would say, you know, this conversation, I really think we're on the same wavelength, and what style you have, like, it's not quite as good as mine, but I do need to do my collar like that. Where's your tailor? Maybe it's by my appointment tomorrow. Oh goodness, my appointment tomorrow, but, oh, my watch is broken. Would you have the confidence to lend me your watch until tomorrow? I'd return it tomorrow. And he was able to get multiple watches that way by preying upon people's kindness and need to suffice when others need. Greed is wrong. Need is right. Need is good. And it's okay if someone can't help someone out, but it's also a great kindness, and it shows that we are one. So I'd rather hand my watch over to someone and hope that they really needed it. And even if they stole it, maybe they really needed it. But also, we have to recognize that something like a watch it's just about like an iPhone. Back in the day, a watch really was, it's like your personal planner to the world, like, well, this is when this is going to happen. This is the only thing that I have tethering me to that appointment other than the place and that person and the time. That your watch working and being able to count on that, and like, oh, I don't have that now. That's something that means something to give to someone. Likewise, a politician asks for the watch. They say, you trust me, we're simpatico enough that you, while you go to sleep tonight, or while you go to do your jobs, you're doing other things, you trust me to be in charge. In fact, let's observe, they didn't call the United States chief executive a prime minister. They called him a president, or her. They called them president because they preside. That is, they sit before and watch over the meeting. They preside over it. Just like when someone invites people to an event, they are presiding over that event. They're not just speaking there. When you promise people that you have proof of fraud and say it's everywhere, and keep saying it's everywhere, and stop talking about the proof, but have said it's so people are expecting it, and 2 months later, you've silently lured people through a split second of 2 months of going, meanwhile, you're saying that the FBI are stopping any search of looking for the proof that's everywhere, where if you had the proof, you would send the fucking email. So this kind of reality distortion and withholding and magical space of, well, if he had, no, of course it's cut. But if he had shown the proof, then that would have really changed things. And he still claims that he had it. Interestingly enough, if he did have it at this point, and that was found to be the case, if there actually were proof, and he hadn't shown it to us, what an incredible betrayal of everybody. And in fact, multiple laws are broken there. That is intentional manipulation of the public and disinformation that amounts to terrorism. And certainly people died, just like 1.2 million people died specifically because Stephen Miller and Donald Trump decided to lie for 6 weeks and failed to tell people that COVID was deadlier than the flu by far and spread by breath, and that we didn't know how bad it was going to be, but it was going to be the worst security threat of Donald Trump's presidency. Donald Trump sees threats coming in and figures out how he'll use them as a panic when they're convenient. And if we see him between us and the iceberg that's coming, it's because he's on the tip of it, driving it to us, like he has always been. We know it, but it's terrifying when someone is looking at us going, hi, I'm going to come and grab your pussy. And that's happening slowly for 8 years, or 4, or 6, or 8, or 9. It's been 9 now. That we have all been in an abusive relationship with him. And I sympathize with you, JD, that you are also in a terroristic, abusive relationship with the falsehood. But I'm beginning to suspect that Donald Trump may actually know who the falsehood is, even. It makes me wonder if you possibly have heard the voice of the falsehood raw in the room somewhere at some point. Maybe you have data that could lead to the identity of the pernicious and mysterious falsehood. Who knows? But that's even a darker topic than the fact that you just threatened us. Well, let's put it on equal playing field. I mean, existential threat to habitat and humanity on both of those, so I think we can just weigh them together. You don't get to hurt us, and you don't get to threaten to hurt us to gain our power that you'll protect us. We're not going to fall for that mobster shit. You ridiculous little boy. Don't ever threaten us again. And yes, the judgment of the human race is, yes, you are doing full-fledged Nazi brown-shirting, gaslighting, trying to produce Kristallnacht. Yes, that's what you just did. That's on the record. We saw you do that. We saw even journalists start to repeat your terroristic scapegoating when they would talk about the story as if your story, which was the scapegoating, was the story. So, points there for reality distortion that is flummoxing people, or I guess points for Donald Trump managing to indeed terrify people enough and have supporters there who are indeed corrupting things further. The press is not the enemy of the people, but disassembling and intimidating the press is definitely something that enemies of the people do. And so that's the point. We don't tear everything down. When we see evidence of corruption, we don't say we're going to gut it and fill it with people loyal only to us. We fix the issues. And if we don't burn it all down, we have a better chance to do that, and to do that with people who care and have been around for decades potentially, working in bipartisan fashion and holding things together, and definitely holding things together when your boy tried to terrorize and tear them apart. How many Sharpied up, shitty papers did he shove down the toilet? And how many boxes of shitty paper, toilet water, are there in a hole somewhere that are worth trillions? Because he did or may not have recorded a death threat on them. But you're with a bad person. You're with someone who is a dark triad, malicious, malignant narcissist. And he needs help. But he doesn't need enabling. He doesn't need someone to Sieg Heil him. He needs someone to say, Donald, you know you lost. I know you lost. And you're proving that you're not a leader by trying to hide in a husk of some kind of weird perfection. It's a confirmation that we are dealing with a malignant narcissist and fascist who will work to distort reality and make us accept whatever he wants. You are following in his footsteps, and you will be swallowed with him. Because his Eucharist is making people swallow unimaginable falsehoods and swallow unimaginable degradations and rapes and pillagings of other people, unimaginable defiling of things and moments and honor and love that we love. He's defiling humanity. And he chooses things that matter the most to treat like garbage, just like you did last night, to terrorize and murder us. It's like sand. It just gets in and seeps and murders us. And you know it because you were just doing it last night. You just tried to follow in those footsteps. And those are terror boots. So don't put those on again, little boy. You're not a big boy. Big boys don't wear terror boots. Little boys who want therapy, which is, by the way, awesome, or jail, which is, by the way, not as awesome as it should be, you'll get consequences because we don't allow people to be a danger to others and themselves. Trying to spread intolerance with weird little excuses of how, oh, it's okay because, no. you're trying to bring the devil into a nation that is not Christian, but is largely filled with people who do have honor and caring and love, and by and large, a lot of people who are people of faith, and many Christians. But even those of us who aren't Christian care about prophets like Jesus Christ, and we can see that you and Ron DeSantis and Elon Musk have deeply perverted Christ's message. You are antichrists. You embody all of the deadly sins. And instead of trying to tear America into shreds by removing protections that keep things well, healthily compartmentalized, like checks and balances between stable three branches of government, or a separation between church and state that protects religions and protects the practice of religion, or the freedom from religion, and protects the freedom of our constitutional republic. Stop trying to pretend like that's something you can wipe away. It's bedrock. It's the world we live in. It's the world that has let us survive. And you don't disassemble it. Instead, instead of trying to control and coerce everyone to be indoctrinated into a tiny, small little bandwidth out of which you will not see anyone, let anyone else see anything, which is, by the way, what indoctrination is, massive limiting, which is what you want to do. Censor. Let's get to that. You are the fucking censors. You are the book burners. And reproach, like telling you, don't say that. Don't call them that. That's a word that, like, oppressive people who raided that country 100 years ago used. Don't use that word. That's called reproach. It's called critique. And it's called, if you're a feeling, thinking human being, you typically want to use language that isn't connected to imperialism and terrorism. You know, if you were attacked by someone down the street and people made jokes about it all the time, and just it became a point of how people regarded you, and they said, oh yeah, and they made a joke about it as if it was funny that you were hurt, and just leaned on it all the time, and it became normalized, that would be ridiculous and harmful to you. Don't perpetuate that kind of shit with other people. That's not Christ-like. Don't try to coerce people to do only what you want them to do in the bedroom. Don't try to coerce people to believe that while nature shows greater diversity, you're going to tell people about who they are and their sex and their gender. Why don't you mind your own business? Why don't you actually stop diluting the idea that experts are experts? Experts get held accountable, you know, and if they don't, there are ways to fix that. But you're talking about letting the lynch mob, or people who control the lynch mob, make the calls. And that's batshit. That's fucking ridiculous. We have a process, for instance, leading up to the elections to do it correctly, which is why we shouldn't let people who are constantly yelling that it's going to be rigged, as opposed to assisting its health, into the process. You've confessed. You confessed that you have malicious intent. You failed to check the box that you will obey the terms and conditions. The terms of service. You're like, I won't check that. And so this is the screen where it goes gunk, 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 gunk. Will not proceed. Sorry. You have failed to qualify an eligibility to run for office in the United States because you just confessed that you think you can do something that has previously been done. We have seen someone coerce and tell us they will just tell us later, and been blitzed by that. And you're trying to repeat a crime. you are a criminal, and you are a terrorist and a looter. And that's been apparent for a while. Someone who's going for ending no-fault divorce is a terrorist. You're treating more than half the human race like they're a plaything. And the only reason you want to do it is because you want men to be able to rape their wives. And you want to be able to terrorize women into being controlled. That's why. You want to protect predators. You want to protect white supremacist, patriarchal terrorists, largely white male predators. Men who would be arrested. Men who are, through financial and patriarchal terrorism and abuse, holding women in personal holocausts all over the country. And you know about it. And you've helped it happen. And if you haven't held down victims while they're being hurt by other people, I'd be shocked. Because you do it virtually, and you do it by proxy. And you just did it to Americans and American guests, to people here legally. You don't judge. You're not an executioner, but you just acted like one. You don't get to call for people's execution from the crowd. You don't get to call for people's execution from the pulpit. You don't get to call for people's execution from the debate stage. And you did. And don't ever do it again. None of us are less equal, and you just tried to call for it. Get that fucking Nazi frog out of your throat. Cough that death up. If it's part of you, heal it. But heal that Nazi apartheid cancer. Or kill it. Because it's not you, dude. It broke you. It broke part of you. It's broken part of this country for hundreds of years. But we don't accept poisoned wool blankets anymore. They are not currency. And your bluster coercion spell is less than noteworthy, other than for the fact that it's a confession that you are a violent terrorist. No one will coerce us to submit. We require an actual candidate. So by mass, people will definitely be voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who actually have signs of real competence and honor, and are definitely going to honor elections. It's a basic agreement that we enter into. And it's part of a little thing called law and order, and it's part of a little thing called human dignity, and it's part of a little thing called honor. If you have any of those qualities, you will pull your head out of smelling the own shit around you. Like, pull it back out of your ass. No one talks to human beings like that. You definitely don't get to fucking talk to Americans like that. We're here. Yes, we've been separated and isolated and degraded to the point where it's tough to believe in ourselves, but we're not dead. And we are woke, and we're waking more deeply. It's funny that when you wake deeply, you calm down. While you are trying to create lynch mob brain syndrome, we're calming down. We are getting ready to help you to therapy. And it should be in the next few days. Or really, it's going to be incredibly public and humiliating, because we won't be dragged into accepting the nonsense of a patriarchal terrorist Nazi state. Not by accident, not by falling into it, not by being wooed, by people who simply are very good at lying and so are willing to promise anything. But you wouldn't even dare to promise that you won't separate families. You wouldn't even dare to promise that you will honor the election. And if you don't know that that's a basic requirement of the job, you don't deserve the job. You don't deserve the job. You are truly ridiculous and disgusting. But we can manifest something called the kind prehension. We can see you coming and manifest the kind prehension. It's not that difficult to see you Nazis coming and manifest the kind prehension. Did you know that? Did you know that it's easy to see you coming? The kind prehension helps us see people making horrible terroristic threats. It helps us see people who actually raise their finger like a gun and shoot us, knowing that we will be looking at the screen. Do you know who does that? If someone looks into your eyes and pulls their finger like a trigger, like they're holding a gun, because they know you're going to be looking into that view screen, you are definitely in an abusive relationship. And you should definitely break up with Kevin Roberts. And you might could possibly think about breaking up with the guy who decided to tell us that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose anybody. And what's funny is you're given the chance to weigh in on things like this, and you don't. Because just like someone standing with a group of men who yell terroristic shit at a woman and say, "Why don't you smile, baby?" and you just stand there saying nothing. You're the guard on duty of that harassment, dude. You're the person making sure that there's a getaway car. You're the person making sure that there's another big guy there watching while the woman is afraid for her life. You are a rapist, and you're a rapist booster. And you're following this guy who in this moment threatened you and your wife and children too. He's not trying to win, he's trying to conquer. And eventually we're all a flavor that looks valuable, if only because we do matter. To some degree, it's a little bit of a compliment if he comes after you, because it means that he realizes somebody's going to miss you. When he comes over and throws acid in your face or tries to destroy you, or like with Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, he takes some of the most amazing people in the world and sends the Ku Klux Klan and all kinds of terrorists after them, tries to have them murdered. And you stand for and with and salute that white floss-haired terrorist. It's unacceptable, and it shows your character, that you are cuckolded for this ridiculous mistake. This ongoing terroristic mistake. We can see that you can't see, but Nazis are not welcome. Not in the tapestry. You don't get to weave that in. You don't get to pull threads of a poison wool blanket in. No. You've confessed, and the process now has you under arrest. you're not qualified to run. You and Donald Trump are waging an attack, and you are simply continuing the insurrection. So, no. Rejected. Rejected. You can't shoot someone on the street, and we'll make you swallow the fucking bullet if you try. No. The answer is no. No one talks to us like that. No one talks to human kindness like that. And we don't need to use violence or threats to stop you from doing it. It's good to speak in language that you hear, but you'll hear that you're going to stop, and we need to raise our arms to stop yours swinging, because you won't be swinging those arms, or you will be swinging. It's not a threat. We simply won't allow members of the community to be terrorists. We won't negotiate with terrorists. Okay? So because we won't negotiate with terrorists, JD, we won't negotiate with you. Seek therapy right now. Because we believe this place actually is worth coming to, and the Statue of Liberty is telling people to come here. And I believe it's a place worth coming to. So, you terrorists don't get to have the room anymore. The adults and people who follow the law and who are not genocide mongers will have the room.